and Truth here. Time for another episode of Otaku Evolution. Sorry about the delay. I guess Action Channel Month's bleeding into October this year. That's okay, I was gonna take some time off this month. Anyway, Bubblegum Crisis! It's one of those anime I was aware of for years because of its weird name that I just somehow didn't get to until I saw it on the Action Channel. Now it's one of my favorites. Though it's also really ridiculous. Hey folks, do you like Blade Runner? I mean, do you really like Blade Runner? But is there fewer tits and not enough gore in Blade Runner for your tastes? Well, have I got news for you. There's an 8-episode OVA from the 1980s that is possibly the most 80s thing ever while still taking place in the future. And I happen to like 80s future. Who doesn't? It's like 60s futurism got beaten in an alley by Wall Street yuppies and was nursed back to health by 50s delinquent culture. Think Radio Shack meets The Wild One. Bubblegum Crisis takes place in a Tokyo that has been hard-fucked by a huge-ass earthquake and has been rebuilt by the ubiquitous, if not omnipresent, Genom Corporation, who own and control, well, pretty much everything. They're like Disney without the friendly facade. Their main product are cybernetic lifeforms called boomers, which are built to do a variety of different work, though we mostly see only one kind. Killing people. Mostly cops. Now, production of new types of boomers, especially for combat, is strictly prohibited in Japan, so Genom sends them overseas to fight in wars. But they're brazen enough to use their hometown as a proving ground for boomers. They're safe in their part of the city, so who cares about the rabble, right? A specialized police force called the AD Police are supposed to rein in rogue boomers, but are heavily influenced by Genom and basically useless at anything that doesn't involve getting themselves brutally killed by boomers. And if you're a helicopter pilot, boy, let's hope your affairs are in order.
The attacker's base.
Fortunately, a group of 4 women, leader Celia, who's possibly more than human, Pris, the only one anyone cares about because this is mostly about her, Lena, the one with cool gear but the personality of a packing peanut, and Nene, who is there, are more than capable of fighting and destroying boomers with their high-tech hard suits. So called because when you see them, they're called the Night Sabers. Knights never used sabers, but okay, the anime is called Bubblegum Crisis. Obviously, reasonable names are optional here.
This is a totally new, highly advanced design.
The Night Sabers are officially a work-for-hire outfit, getting paid by interested parties such as the military. Though it seems like they spend most of their time avenging anyone who comes into contact with Pris. A little girl boomer that warms up to her? Blown to smithereens. A struggling single mother with a modest dream? Crushed under rubble when Genom tears down her apartment. A beautiful sex spot looking to break free from a life of servitude? Pris is forced to kill her to prevent a nuclear explosion. One young lady who gets offed is Lena's friend, but Pris was in the vicinity at the time, so I'm going to call that for her curse count. Honestly, Pris is probably friends with the other Night Sabers because they're the only 3 people who can stay alive around her. Maybe Pris gets involved with these hopeless cases just so she can feel the rush of vengeance, because it's like her bread and butter. Well, revenge and vaguely punk rock / new wave music, which she sings dressed like one of the holograms. Makes sense, as her Japanese voice actor was Kuniko Omori, obviously hired for her singing abilities. So she does give Pris a certain raw quality that fits her brash yet emotionally sensitive passions.
もう逃げないぞ。アンディ、シルビー、俺に力を与えてくれ。
In the English version, not so much.
Can't quit. Won't quit on me, Sylvie. Give me all your power!
Die, bitch!
With Pris, a hard-fighting, bike-riding, punk-rocking, satellite laser-shaking-off-ing badass constantly highlighted, it can be easy to forget that there are other lightsabers, like their leader, Celia, who owns a lingerie shop called the Silky Doll, has a brother with a sister complex, and whose father was murdered by a Genom executive after having been part of the initial Boomer research. Said executive is Brian J. Mason, voiced by Char Aznavour himself, Shuichi Ikeda, in the Japanese version, who has a bit of an obsession with Celia. Ultimately, he's stupid enough to stick around on a work night while they attack Genom HQ instead of simply taking an evening show. And his own version of a hard suit is, well, not nearly as effective. Here Celia brazenly murders a guy who technically has done nothing illegal, but the cops are like, well, got here late, might as well enjoy this shit. Yeah, also, some shit may have been uploaded into her noggin at some point. Because reasons. Reasons we never find out.
Well, what do you think would happen if a corporation like Genom were to take over the world?
I guess the cities would be wall-to-wall boomers.
And if that were the case, there'd be no place for us humans, right? For every good thing Genom does for the world, it also does something bad.
Lena, on the other hand, has probably the coolest hardsuit features, with ribbons capable of slicing through metal and a striking green with orange trim color scheme. This is probably to compensate for the fact that, while she does get 2 separate episodes that focus on her, she's, pretty conventional. She's athletic and driven, but she doesn't have Pris's fire, Celia's understated charisma, or Nene's bubbly joviality. Let's face it, folks, Lena is about as exciting as doing one of those CAPTCHA puzzles to post on 4chan. Click on all the cars, my ass. In episode 7, the sister of the last Lena was friends with in episode 2 blows into town to hunt down Genom chairman Quincy, who always seems to turn out to be an LMD. And it's retconned that Lena was really close with poor Irene. But in episode 2, she was just kind of still getting to know her. She's so determined to keep Reika from wasting her life on revenge, she should give Pris a talking to. It comes across oddly because, come on Lena, you spent like an afternoon with Irene. Even Nene has a bigger connection to Reika, being a big fan of her under her stage name Vision. Maybe Lena would have received more development if the OVA had gone on longer. Nene is, well, she's an employee of the AD police, infiltrating their ranks to give inside information to the Nightsabers. As a Nightsaber herself, though, she's sorely lacking in physical prowess. It seems like her hardsuit is just to keep her alive, as her real expertise is in computer systems. But her ineffectual combat skills aside, she has kind of this sympathetic likability. She could have been just a shrill, cutesy mascot character who's constantly getting in the way, but she comes off more like a trainee who may not be cut out for the field, but is respectable in her expertise. Also, we get this brief shower shot. Nice nenes.
We did it! By causing a power feedback along the boomer circuits, we managed to force it to self-destruct.
Well done.
Celia, Pris, Lena! Oh, you all waited for me. Thank you.
Of course, Nene isn't the only officer at the AD police without a red shirt on. There's also Leon McNichol, this goofy motherfucker who thinks he's really slick, and Daily Wong, who... he's the gay guy. That is his only notable character trait. Believe it or not, this was progressive back in the day, that an anime admitted dudes who liked other dudes could be normal. So normal, in fact, he has no discernible personality. But he's not a mincing stereotype either, so... yeah, fair for its time. Look, it was 1980s Japan. It could have been so much worse. Just look at Venus Wars.
My gut feeling tells me there's some kind of connection. Call it feminine intuition.
Coming from you, I believe it. Here, catch.
These two guys rarely do anything except for cover for the Night Sabers' actions, and occasionally arrest bad guys after the Night Sabers defeat them. Oh, and once Leon deployed in a pretty neat mecha suit that was nevertheless trashed immediately. The AD police are about as effective as real police. Except that they don't go around shooting unarmed black men. Because there's only one black guy living in Mega Tokyo, and he's the chief of police.
What the hell's going on?
Sir, it seems someone is occupying the AD police building.
Just what do you mean, someone?
We still haven't figured that out, sir, but we think it's probably terrorists using boomers.
I'm trying too hard to be topical, aren't I? There's few major villains in these 8 episodes because the Night Sabers have a tendency to shiv a motherfucker and leave him bleeding in the night. Take, for instance, the aforementioned Brian J. Mason, who looks like he could give Paul von Oberstein lessons in creepiness. All creepy anime villains should be measured on a Mason scale. This guy lasts 3 episodes and, maybe he lasts more episodes. He just, comes back under a different name. Yeah, the best 2 episodes of Bubblegum Crisis deal with this dude, Largo, who appears to be Mason downloaded into a boomer body. Both episodes, 5 and 6, were directed by noted video game anime director, mecha designer, and also designer of just... the worst-looking characters you've ever seen in anime, Masami Obari. The 2 entries are essentially a 2-part story dealing with the 33S sexeroid boomers that escaped the space station and this dude who looks like he borrowed Two-Face's wardrobe. This part of the OVA is essentially the emotional core of the whole thing. The 3 Mason episodes that started the series were a setup for this, and after this we get 2 unrelated one-offs. Basically, this becomes the entire point of Bubblegum Crisis, these episodes. I hate to give Obari any credit for quality work, but these are 2 of the best episodes I've ever seen in any anime. Sure, they're a tad overwrought, especially with Pris's over-the-top emotional reaction to women she just met, leading to speculation about Pris's own sexuality. But you've got a villain who can rain down death from above, some sweet action sequences, some top-notch animation, and music that really sets the tone. It's not as brainy as Blade Runner, but it's a shit ton more fun.
Yes, in just a little while, we'll be able to live completely under our own power.
And now let's talk about an element of Bubblegum Crisis that's near and dear to me, the music. As I mentioned earlier, Kuniko Omori, the voice of Pris, was by trade a singer, and she supplied some of the vocal music. She hasn't done any other voice work for anime since, nor really any music for it since the Nadia movie in '91. She didn't even reprise her role as Pris in the much-contested sequel Bubblegum Crash. Because of contract tangles, she can only do a certain number of solo pieces for Crisis, so in several tracks she's performing with the other actors that played the Night Sabers. The group tracks are pretty good, but it's clear that Omori's doing the heavy lifting. And in the live performances, well, it looks like some of them really don't want to be there. Yoshiko Sakakibara clearly didn't sign up for that. But because of the contract problem, the studio was allegedly set to kill Pris off and replace her with Episode 7's Vision. It's Pris's continued popularity that kept Omori in play. I have to say, though, there's a song in Episode 3 that seems kind of familiar. that movie does start out with a rock show. But wait, there's a track from episode 5 that also sounds familiar. Homage? Ripoff? You decide! The music is, with very few exceptions, pretty remarkable. Even plenty of the incidental tracks. Take this scene where the sexoroid Sylvie is being pursued by the C-type battle boomers. They play a simple but effective piece that sets the tone.
Firefight spotted on highway.
And the dub studio went through the trouble of dubbing the vocal pieces. I mean, to mixed results, and even at their best nowhere near as good as the Japanese versions, but hey, for the time, not all that bad. Better than a lot of the acting in the dub, at least, but that's an incredibly low bar, because the dub is horrible. Sorry, it had to be said. If you're watching Bubblegum Crisis dubbed, you're watching it wrong. Stop it. Japanese with subtitles. I cannot stress that enough. Oh, and let's get to another point. Bubblegum Crisis might not actually be cyberpunk. It takes place in a future environment heavily influenced by a ubiquitous megacorporation. It has themes of transhumanism, man's relationship with new technologies, the exploitation of the common man by corporations, and the day-to-day struggle with blue robots that shoot lasers out of their mouths. You know, the classic cyberpunk elements. But, see, the thing is, Bubblegum Crisis is a little too triumphant to be true cyberpunk. Sure, it can be dark, bloody, and tragic, but it's also very peppy, bright, and fond of its robotic monstrosities. It's having a little too much fun marveling over the cool mecha in it to capture the often pessimistic, if not nihilistic tone of cyberpunk. And the last 2 episodes are practically happy romps compared to the existential dread of some of the early ones. You know what's cyberpunk? The prequel, AD Police. That's fucking cyberpunk. Even when our heroes win, they always lose. Bubblegum Crisis is going to lift you up with a catchy number about love and teamwork. AD Police will show you a guy whose only human part is his tongue, and he longs to feel his body penetrated by bullets just to feel anything. I had to take an extra sertraline just to describe that without collapsing out of anxiety. But fuck it. Bubblegum Crisis is cyberpunk-ish. That's enough. What, am I going to give it a hard time for having confidence? You do you, Bubblegum Crisis. At least until Crash. Crash makes me feel uncomfortable. Bubblegum Crisis doesn't have the most intricate characters or developed scenarios, or even a lot of thematic meat. You might even say it's just a flashover substance time capsule, the play school version of 80s sci-fi like Terminator and Alien. There's something deeper in it that resonates at the core. For all its contrivances and melodrama, it's unapologetic about what it is, and when and where it wants to hit you when it does. Even if the main narrative was never fully realized, the OVA itself is fully realized in what it is and the form it took. Plus, you got to see Pris's tits when she put on the suit. In the 80s, that was choice. So that brings us to the end of Action Channel Month. I'm not even sure I have enough material for another one. But I'll definitely still do theme months, even if they spill over. Now what to do for Halloween this year? I have to think about that. Well, until then, see ya!
Je t'aime.